One of the classic recipes from the medieval period is pottage. Now I say recipe, there wasn't actually a real hard set recipe that you had to follow. Basically, pottage was a cross between what we would know as a soup and a stew nowadays. And it was made from whatever was available, and it was eaten by all classes of people. Now, at the lower end, for the peasants, it would be a very watery pottage because they had fewer ingredients to put into it, and it would be almost entirely vegetarian. Whereas the richer people had meat in their pottage and even some spices as well if they were really, really rich. So what we're going to have a go at doing in our 21st century kitchen now is to make a pottage which would have been consumed by the richer people in medieval society, and that means we're going to be including some meat. Now this is game. It's most of this has already been cooked, so in there we've got squirrel, pigeon, rabbit and duck, and as I say, some of this has already been cooked, and that's all going to be chopped to go into the soup, into the pottage as well, and we've been storing it in a very 21st century sweet box. As the stock, what we're going to do is add this. This is gelatine, and it's been made from pig's trotters, and every part of the pig, indeed every part of any animal that was slaughtered in the medieval period, was used. No waste at all. And we're going to add in a couple of cabbages. Now these have sort of slightly manky leaves on them, and back in the medieval period those manky leaves would have just been taken off and fed to the pigs. We're not allowed to do that nowadays because we're not allowed to feed kitchen waste to our animals, to our livestock. It's illegal to do so. It all goes back to the foot and mouth problem that we had over a decade and a half ago. Now, in the medieval period, beans were important. These are beans that have been actually in our freezer for about 3 or 4 years, so we're needing to use them up. And they are broad beans. Now, beans and peas and pulses were grown very widely. It was a very common crop back in the medieval period. And for people at the lower end of the social scale, it was really important to be consuming beans because you weren't getting meat, and the beans and the peas provided you with your protein. And we're also going to be chucking in some runner beans, some chopped runner beans, and a few onions as well. Onions really important, very good for your health, but also important for flavour as well. And we're also going to add in this. These are nutmeg. This is what the very rich would have been able to buy. So we're going to put one of those, or half of one of those, grated into the pottage. And finally, we're going to add a few herbs which just come from our herb garden. We've got thyme and some hyssop. I don't know many people who grow hyssop these days, but certainly it was grown in the medieval period. And we've got some dried rosemary to add in as well. Well, as you can see, the gelatine and the stock have now liquefied, so we're going to add in the meat and then the cabbage and the onions and the beans. Now, medieval man wouldn't have had the problem of having lots of ice on their beans, but there we go. And the runner beans. I'm going to let that all sort of warm up for a few minutes. I've tied the herbs together, but also added in some bay leaves as well. Also, I have grated half a nutmeg, and these are going to go into the pan now. What we're also going to do is add in more water. So adding in a couple of litres. And then we'll bring that up to the boil. After it came to the boil, we turned the heat down and let it simmer for about an hour and a half, and this is now ready to be served. Here goes. That's fine. As I said earlier, this was a very common way of cooking what ingredients people had available. As I say, no specific set recipe to this, but really it was just a way to make sure that you had a hot meal. Obviously the richer you were, the more contents in it. The richer you were, the more the more meat you could eat. Remember, for medieval people, that animals were worth far more to them alive than they were dead. So if you were poor and had animals, you'd want the cattle for milking, the chickens for laying eggs, and so on, rather than for killing them for meat. But the richer you were, the more meat you were able to eat, and the more spices you were able to add to your food. It is rather good.